From the studios to the stages, and from the canvases to the screens, we're diving into the passions and projects that drive our creative community forward. Join us as we chat with innovators and trailblazers about their journeys, successes, and lessons learned. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and fueled to pursue your own creative dreams. Welcome to Coffee in the Morning, the perfect blend of conversation, creativity, and community.
Hi, this is Jermaine Michael Charles. My career began in the early 2000s when I started a fashion brand called Astute Menswear while I was studying graphic design at the Bulawayo Polytechnic. From then on, I moved on to do a degree in fine art at UCT. And while I was there, I got into the music space, particularly radio and DJing, and I started a DJ collective with a few of my friends. We hosted events, so that was my introduction to the event space. So I worked with brands such as Peroni and Miller Genuine Draft, and that's where the intersection between marketing, branding, social media marketing, event production, and as well as sort of the music industry began. And later on, I started interacting with different brands, specifically Head Honcho, and that's where I saw that there was a need for platforms for emerging brands to get into retail space, and we started our first brand called ZXL. From there, we branched into a new brand looking at distributing and manufacturing for emerging brands. And this essentially led up to what is now Merchbase. When my friend and business partner Hadley Schoolman saw that there was a gap in the market, having lived overseas and seeing lots of different brands come into the sort of merchandise space, specifically entertainment brands. So it was essentially his idea. We are a reseller of different brands at the time with ZXL, and then we started integrating other aspects of branding such as printing, embroidery, sourcing, and manufacturing for emerging brands. So Merchbase, essentially the name came about in 2021 because there is an app called Fanbase already, and we didn't want confusion with the market, and we wanted to really ensure that people recognize what we do as far as merch goes. And yeah, so the inspiration for Merchbase was creating a platform which would operate as a marketplace for different artists, where different artists could sell their merchandise consistently, as well as just leverage our expertise, our experience in over the last 10 years within the space. Well, what a lot of artists don't realize that it's very viable if you're consistent, and if you are able to ensure that you create content as well as enough excitement around your brand. It is viable. I mean, we have, there's lots of information around there about how Casper Nyovest made like 450,000 from merch. You have Mac Miller making $20,000 just from one tour venue. You've seen the numbers for Yeezy, and the main thing is that it's viable because it pays you more than a stream. You'd make more money off selling one t-shirt than doing sales from several thousand streams. So it is very viable, and it is something that is very important for artists to consider. So Merchbase is what I would say is our fourth brand within what we would say the clothing production and distribution space. Our first one was called ZXL Online, and there the focus was reselling local brands. And then we pivoted into manufacturing. So we manufactured for small brands and worked with other brands distributing their brands to different spaces through pop-ups and an online store. That was in 2012. And then we saw more of a demand where people were asking us where we could print, where we could embroider. So we decided to cover that gap and enable people to, you know, launch their streetwear brands faster by bundling services that they needed. So we would create bundles from caps, hoodies, t-shirts, and do all the branding and deliver them a finished product that they could immediately sell. We saw a lot more demand from musicians to start selling merchandise, specifically brands like Cash Time Life, and how they were early adopters of the merchandise thing. And that's where we started seeing more and more DJs, artists, and started reaching them out to them in 2015 with our second brand, which was called Official Merchandise Company, which unfortunately was not successful because the timing was not right. So we, put that on hold for a little bit and continued doing the wholesale production for brands. And then in 2018, we shut down ZXL and we decided we were going to regroup because we weren't getting the level of business we needed in the market. And we wanted to expand between just doing for streetwear brands. And then from 2018 until 2019, we launched our first brand called Fanbase. We ended up, it was right before COVID, and we launched in March 2020. And we, because of our relationships in the DJing and entertainment space, we managed to work with quite a few of our friends and started, the journey towards exposing people, especially in the Eastern Cape, where I, as one of the co-founders, is based, to the idea of merchandise, and it worked quite well. We had really started adjusting our business model and understanding a lot more. And one of the things that we needed is we needed to change our name because there was an app called Fanbase, so we needed to change the name to really make sure we are identifiable and based on what we do. So that's how we became Merch Base Africa in 2021. And having worked through various incubators like the CC Hub in Nigeria and the UCT Graduate School of Business Accelerator and Incubator, we really realized that we needed to create not only a marketplace but also a production hub. So Merchbase essentially offers artists the opportunity to do two things, which is have their merchandise produced by us and also sold by us. So we enable them to be sustainable without having to put up any money. And this is one of the things we realize, is that a lot of artists can see that merch is sustainable and viable, but they don't have the resources in terms of experience, in terms of design skills, perhaps, in terms of marketing, in terms of having the platform such as the online store for them to sell. So, you know, really the biggest point in understanding merch as a revenue stream started in 2012 and 2011, looking at Odd Future's business model and how they didn't sell music, but they sold experiences that came with merchandise in terms of their shows. In terms of viability of merchandise, this was a clear indicator that merchandise is a clear and viable income stream. And we've seen artists like Casper Nyovest state that they've made 450,000 rand from merchandise. We've seen Kanye West make billions of rands in merchandise. We've seen Mac Miller. We've seen artists, you know, even selling CDs as merchandise. So quite recently, making hundreds of thousands of rands in South Africa. So it is very viable, but it takes a lot of hard work. It takes consistency. It takes being able to scale. One of the things that is a disabling factor is that even though artists are on Spotify and their fans all over the world, they're not able to sell merch to their fans all over the world. And this is what we are able to do for them through our platform. The main reason we started Merchbase is that we realized that the African artists specifically do not have sufficient enough access to their wider market. With the success of Amapiano and Afrobeats, as well as other genres of African music throughout the years, including legacy artists, you can see that they're not really accessing the global market. So one of the key things about our platform is that we enable African artists from anywhere in Africa to sell not only to the fellow Africans across the continent, but also to the diaspora, as well as fans across the world in the US, in Europe, in Australia, Canada, and South America. Because as we know, like the music from Africa now is a global phenomenon, and we're seeing it with so many artists. And we are providing that platform that is essentially free for artists to do that. Artists are embracing it, but they obviously lack the expertise. While they may be very strong in in making music, merchandise is a different ball game altogether. And the easiest way we believe to do that is for to embrace a partnership with a company like ours. A lot of smaller artists are neglecting merchandise because they don't feel they have enough numbers. But the great thing about momentum, about our merch, is that it requires momentum. So you need momentum, start from one sale to 10 sales to 100 sales. And as you grow as a brand, as more people interact with you, as more people discover you, they'll realize that buying merch is the way they want to support you beyond streaming or sharing your music. So yes, artists are embracing the idea, and we're consistently reaching out to artists across the African diaspora as well as within Africa. It's part of our mission to get as many artists onto merchandise so that they can create sustainable careers for themselves and essentially focus on doing what they love, which is making music and performing and rehearsing, and not having the hassle about dealing with merchandise. In terms of advice, I would say that look at merchandise as a way to connect. Many of your fans will never get the opportunity to see you perform live, and as an artist, you can only perform at one place at a time. So the 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 physical interaction an artist gets through merchandise is as close as most will get to actually maybe seeing you perform live in a specific venue, right? And also, it's a billboard. If you create compelling and interesting merchandise, you have a billboard that speaks to what you do. It also helps fans of your music connect to each other, across genres. So if you're a hip hop artist, it's a great platform to use for that specific demographic. And also, one thing you should also realize is that as a source of income, you can easily make anything from $2,000 a year to 100,000. As long as you're consistent and you keep growing your platforms, and you actually see the relationship you have with fans as a relationship, and you give as much as you can give, and you reciprocate as much as you can. Thank you, Jabu. Thank you, Hub Online. Peace.